from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell and I'm in the ABC commentary box at Adelaide Oval. It is my favourite ground in the world. Adelaide, the city of churches, and we can see, well, if it was daylight we could see the cathedral across beyond the Moreton Bay fig trees and the heritage scoreboard, but this is a day-night test match that I've been watching here. So the night sky is now dark, the floodlights have been on, they've been switched off as the crowd has now dissipated, and I'm very pleased that I've got the lovely Jim Maxwell alongside me again.
Ali, where's the guitar? We need a bit of music at this time of the night. And this has been an eventful day of Test cricket at the beautiful Adelaide Oval. And 25,000 or so fans have turned up. Biggest crowd to watch the first day of a West Indies-Australia test in 40 years. And so that was something to behold. But, Test cricket keeps moving, and Australia moved just as fast as we'll find out when we discuss the opening day.
And I'm Sunil Gupta in New Delhi, a sunny New Delhi, but I'll tell you where the guitars are, Jim. They're gently weeping for the Indian team that is imploding slowly in Bangladesh, having lost the first two games. So the Beatles are right there, over there, and strumming away. Remember, next year, a year down the line, the World Cup is going to be held in India. And I'll tell you, there'll be a lot of questions asked if India don't do well in that particular edition.
What a jamboree that promises to be, though, with India hosting the World Cup. Again, of course, they won it in 2011. With that final in Mumbai, I remember it so well. Well, as we're here at Adelaide Oval, looking out onto the outfield, West Indies team are making their way out of the dressing room and a long walk across the Oval to get out the gate. They'll be back, of course, tomorrow, but it's a long day in the field for them yet again. Well, after a first day where Australia piled up 3 for 330 with yet another century for Marnus Labuschagne. He closed the day 120 not out, so he's got 300s in a row because, of course, in Perth he got the double 100 and the 100 in the same match. Now he's followed it up with a third ton. So he's unbeaten overnight. And Travis Head alongside him, local boy, getting 114 not out. He'll be back tomorrow as well. Jim, I'm not sure whether to start with you with Australia's batting or West Indies bowling, because the bowling was so dismal, so injury hit. That is almost as much of a story as Marnus Labuschagne's batting hunger. Where do you want to start?
Well, the first place I'd start is team selection. It's an indictment of the West Indies management that they should ask a fella to come from Jamaica to Australia and expect that he could walk out onto the field and play in a test match without something going wrong. I mean, we found out subsequent to his appearance this morning that he hadn't played for over a month. So what sort of match fitness did he have?
Should explain, this is Marquino Mindley. Fast bowler brought. He bowled 2 overs, then went off with a hamstring injury, having just been flown in from Jamaica. Yes,
it was quite extraordinary. No, it was a very poor display, and the longer the day went, the worse it became, with the run rate going up over 4 and over in the last hour and a bit. And even the second new ball, which is so much of a problem as a rule here under lights, looked like it was going more like a Turkish delight round the dressing room than a cricket ball on the field. Yeah.
David Warner made 21. He was the first man out, but he started the day and has probably still ended the day in the news for reasons other than his run making. Now, on the eve of this test match, David Warner announced that he'd withdrawn his application to have his lifetime captaincy ban removed. So this relates to his role in Sandpapergate during the tour of South Africa in 2018, when the lifetime leadership ban was placed on him. Recently, Cricket Australia amended their own code of conduct to allow a player to apply to have any long-term sanctions modified. Warner, therefore, had put in an application with the blessing, he says, of Cricket Australia, but he is thoroughly unhappy about the way the panel dealt with his application. He put out a lengthy post on Instagram detailing how he says the review panel wanted to conduct a hearing in public, raking back over events of Sandpapergate, contrary to the way Warner says the process should have been, or at least what he and Cricket Australia thought it would be. First of all, Jim, Warner is upset and angry, it seems, over the process. Is he right to be?
Yes, he's right to be upset with the lack of proper process and a fairer hearing than perhaps he got. And I think the problem that started this was Cricket Australia's decision to amend their code of conduct. And unfortunately, talking to someone this morning, it's pretty clear that the players in the team are fairly upset with Warner in the way this has been dealt with, because it's becoming too much of a distraction. And he's 36 years of age. What possible future would he have as a leader, certainly at the international level, maybe at another level? I worry that all this is going to end badly for Warner. After this series, he plays against South Africa, who have got a much better attack. If he continues to get low scores against them, he could be dropped. But he won't get dropped because he'll retire and go off and play T20. I think that's the more likely outcome of all of this, unless he can start getting some runs and focus on just playing cricket. Because at the moment, this is turning into a very unhappy event for Cricket Australia because of the poor way they have handled it, and now for Warner because it's consuming too much space in the media and against his team.
Let's talk a little bit more, though, about this Australia-West Indies series, because I want to focus on one player in particular from the West Indies side. And that's because on last week's show, we did talk about West Indies debutant from Perth, Tagenarine Chanderpaul. Now, he played very well on his international test debut in the first match of the series, made 45 and 51 as opener, and we found him to be a pretty quietly spoken man. And when he batted, he really did display similar technical and mental characteristics to Shivnarine, his father and legendary West Indies batter. Sunil, and you've been speaking to his father, haven't you?
Oh, yes, that's right. I did speak to Shiv Chanderpaul a couple of days ago, and I obviously first asked him how it felt to watch his son make his test debut at Perth in that, very difficult wicket. And he was a proud father, no question about that.
Obviously, I wasn't too sure what's going to happen, knowing that, Australia bowling attack is the best in the world. Looking at their bowling attack and the teams that have been there for the past, but over the last 10 years haven't done anything much in Australia. And making your debut in Perth is never an easy place, especially against Australia. So not too sure. I wasn't too sure what to expect, but I think he held up pretty well. I mean, look, I know he would have been tested by these guys. It got to show how much fight he's got in him and how well he hold up against these guys.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he learned his sense of fight and standing there and going for it from you, because that's exactly what you did when you were playing Test cricket. But scoring a 51 on debut, now this wasn't the WACA, this was the Perth Stadium. And the WACA, we all recognize, was a very different sort of stadium, very different sort of pitch. But Australia scored 500 plus in their first innings, only 4 wickets down. And the West Indies made a very, very good start before crumbling towards the end. But that 51, so take us through your emotions at that time.
I was like just looking at him and hoping that he could keep his head on, and then making sure that he knows that these guys are top-class bowlers and you can't make too many mistakes with these guys. So these are the things you look for, and you try to make sure that, if he makes them, you watch them, and then, be there to tell him next time that, some of these areas you have to be mindful of or be conscious of it, because they are also looking at these things. Yeah, knowing that he was overnight 40-something, and then next morning he came out to bat and Hazelwood bowled the over. That was an amazing over. I mean, he could have nicked off early in the over, but he nicked off one time, one short slip. Then the next time he nicked off, it bounced through and went through the gap before. And then the other time he nicked, it was gone. So, some good balls, some real top balls in that over there. And he was lucky to get that edge through slip before to get his 50, but he had no choice. He had to play. The ball was on the stumps. He had to play. So, all he could hope for, he missed it and didn't edge it. But unfortunately, he edged it, and got out.
One of the things that we noticed about you both was the similarity in the stance. Is this something he started with right from the beginning, or did you coach him to take up that very open-eyed stance?
No, it's not something he had in the beginning, but I told him to open a little bit because he was very, very sidearm. He was locking himself in a lot. And then he opened up a little too much. Then I'll try to get him back around where he gets a little more sidearm. And then he still stands a little too open, but whatever he's comfortable with.
So how did this very open stance help you and help him? I mean, because it was so unusual.
Well, it's helped you with your balance. You keep as still as possible, making sure your weight is heading in the right direction. That's the main thing. Batting is more about your balance and where your weight is heading. He's got a few areas need to fine tune to help him with his cricket, but hopefully he'll learn a lot from this tour.
Tell me, do you want him to play all formats, or do you want him to focus on being a very good Test cricketer?
Well, he needs to play different formats. He needs to improve his shots. Needs to get better in different formats. Learn to play a few more shots if possible, and improve in those areas. So he needs to play more than one format. He also needs to work on his bowling, because he bowls with both hands, but he's not putting in the extra work on it. So he does not, he needs to do these things. But I could only tell him, but it's up to him to do it.
Thank you so much. We call you the fighter, Shivnarine gritty fighter Chanderpaul. Thank you so much for being on Stumped with us.
No worries. Thank you.
Well, that was Sunil speaking to the great Shivnarine Chanderpaul.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on ABC and All India Radio.
Now, remember the date, remember the location, 5th of December 2022, Rawalpindi, Pakistan, the scene of one of England's greatest away wins of all time, possibly the greatest. And it's also the match that could possibly transform Test cricket. I mean, have we seen anything like this before? England beat Pakistan by 74 runs in front of a sellout crowd on the 5th day, with the final wicket coming with only minutes of light remaining. And yes, we have seen Test matches go down to the wire like that before, but it was what came before it which was so extraordinary. It was a Test match that ultimately broke all sorts of records for England's aggressive scoring in both the first and second innings. And we touched on that last week. You'll remember, I think at the time, it was only the openers who had scored rapid hundreds. Little did we know what was to come, with England scoring runs across the Test at a rate of 6.73 runs per over. Unheard of for sustained batting across a Test match. But the one decision that caused the biggest debate, but it's now being rightly lauded, was Ben Stokes' aggressive declaration. So he declared at tea on day 4, setting Pakistan a very gettable 343 runs to win on the flattest surface that you could find. And it was going to be hard work to take 20 wickets on that pitch. I mean, Jim, we already knew that this was an incredible Test with 4 centuries scored by England on that opening day. But what of that declaration from Stokes on day 4? I mean, brave, bold, however many words you can find.
All of those things. And I think we've noticed since Ben Stokes took over the captaincy that he's prepared to risk losing a game to win a game. He probably doesn't see it that way. He sees it as a great opportunity to win when he makes those kind of declarations. But to do it with the strange bowling attack that he had in this match and to pull it off was simply remarkable. So hopefully it has made all the other captains leading teams bolder, braver, fearless in the way they go about managing their team, in the hope that what they do may get a win, but if they lose, does it really matter? It's a Test match, and you've done your best to put your team in a winning position. So we could at last get rid of this near negative attitude of just leaving enough time to bowl the side out, but not really giving them a sniff and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a huge transformation, potentially for all of Test cricket. But certainly, as I mentioned some time ago, when Stokes and McCullum got the job in tandem, this is one of the most exciting decisions that English cricket have ever made. but I didn't really think we would see this on a flat pitch in Rawalpindi.
Sunil, it's a fine line, though, isn't it? And at the moment, Stokes is getting a lot of credit in the bank, and McCullum for these wins and quite incredible feats that they're achieving as well. But what if it hadn't worked out? How would that declaration then truly have been viewed, do you think?
Think of it from the opponent's point of view, and that is a very interesting point of view. It's like a tennis player playing somebody who's lower ranked than him, right? Especially, say, in a final. And the pressure actually is on the higher ranked guy because he says, I can't lose to that guy. I can't lose to it. What's going to happen to my image and what's going to happen to everything else? And the same thing in Pakistan. Hey, these guys have given us just 340 odd runs to score in 4 sessions. Now, we should be winning. And that pressure comes right back on Pakistan. I can't put a foot wrong. I can't do something wrong. So they can't just go there and play freely.
This was a reaction to the declaration when it first came. Sorry, England are insulting Test cricket. This ridiculous declaration has devalued everything that went before. If you can't win a Test match, you don't hand it to the opposition, who have only had to bat normally to win on this pitch. No carrot involved. The Aussies must be laughing their socks off. Only bad luck can save our naivety. That was from Brian, obviously before England went on to win. Then on the other hand, there was a tweet we picked up from Gary, hashtag BBC Stumped, so we see your tweets. Gary said, think of this declaration differently. It alerts future opposition to an England team that is prepared to lose to win. It will set a cultural change that strikes fear in our opponents and means no team can cruise through sessions against a predictable and conservative opposition. Bravo to Ben. So I think that sort of sums up what you were saying, Sunil. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport and use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And look us up on YouTube as well. Go to the BBC World Service's YouTube channel and you can watch the show there. My thanks to Sunil Gupta and Jim Maxwell and to all of you for listening. Speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.